theme this year for the Fisherman's Ball is Hudson River Rising, and it's really a two-part theme. The issues of climate change are going to get worse and worse. Weather's going to get more extreme. Just in the next 30 years, we're going to have as much as 20 inches of sea level rise. The theme of Hudson River Rising is also about the work being done in communities up and down the river to deal with our environmental threats and to harness the opportunities that we have. We see communities rising up in record numbers. 125 different partner organizations. And that number is only going to grow. We're in communities up and down the Hudson, making sure that those communities have the control of their destiny when it comes to safe drinking water. Riverkeeper means to meet the challenge. And the challenge is people want us to continue to fight for a healthy Hudson and to harness the opportunities to make their community safer, more vibrant, more environmentally healthy, and to develop that relationship with the river that's going to also benefit true recovery of community and river together.
I learn at least one new thing every time I come down here, and I get a greater sense of a connection with the river. The bacteria that we are measuring is called Enterococcus. It's a fecal indicator. Basically, it's found in the colon of virtually all animals. People will say, oh, the water's filthy, but with these numbers specifically and with the specific bacteria, we can prove to them that it's swimmable.
This afternoon, I've seen people fishing and, making use of the river recreationally, but for all that recreation to take place, you need a healthy ecosystem. Water quality is your quality of life, too.
In the spring of 2016, we very suddenly discovered, as citizens of this community within the city they had known for a little while longer, that the water that we had been drinking for over 30 years, for those who had been living here this long, was contaminated. It was pretty quickly ascertained by the DEC that the pollution was coming from the Stewart Air National Guard base. Over 4 years since the crisis was called, and there's no change. The age of waiting for someone bigger and better to fix the problem is over. This is a necessary part of democracy.
Flushing Creek is another tributary in New York City, similar to Newtown Creek, the Gowanus Canal. And it would be a great place for things like kayaking and boating. But again, the plans that developers have now for privately owned and publicly owned land on both sides of Flushing Creek don't allow for anything like that and include no waterfront touch points or places to get down to the water. So here, pointing out that we could have a beach and that people could be hanging out on the beach is kind of the irony. When I was growing up in Flushing, I actually had no idea there was a river. I was super confused why there were seagulls around. But now as we talk more about land use and development in downtown Flushing and Willets Point, again, the river becomes the centerpiece of all these conversations because it's literally in between these massive development sites.
Interesting thing about activism is the more people use these waterways as a resource for their recreational resource, educational resource, the more people are interested in protecting it. That's how environmental stewardship really works. People have to care about the natural resource before they can actually start to do things to protect it. So it's a positive feedback loop. Right? You put people out here, make them understand how great this is. They're going to go back and want to do something about it, and they bring in more people, and it just keeps multiplying.
The best example of the community rising up to help the river happened back in 2016 and 2017. The tug and barge industry and the commercial shipping interests wanted to have a whole bunch of designated anchorages where they could moor vessels. And they petitioned the Coast Guard to designate 10 anchorage grounds with 43 stations or berths for big, big vessels. And they specifically said, we're doing it because we want to support the increase in crude oil transport. What happened was an amazing event. By the end of that 2016, over 10,000 comments had been submitted to the Coast Guard. Some of those comments were represented by people who represent 100 people or a village. We did the math internally, and that 10,000 comments was representing over 1 million voices. The Coast Guard had never, ever seen anything like that in the history of the Coast Guard on any issue. For me, it gave me a great deal of hope. It said that, unlike any time in the past, if you appeal to the general public and you do a good job of communicating for the river, which is our job, speaking for the river, the public now is a different public than there's ever been. And the public will come out to defend this river. And that is the hope for a better future.